talking about anyway. The human soul is a stereo creature that stands between two parallel realms, internal and external. As a dual-band receiver with one face oriented inward and the other turned outward, the soul functions as a conscious interface between heaven and earth, integrating two conscious streams into a single blended awareness. The outward face of the soul is the seat of the rational mind, the faculty of humanity by which the inner spirit being makes cognitive contact with the physical realm. So if you can think of our humanity, we have two faces. One face died. One set of faculties died. Like our outward face, we have five senses: seeing, tasting, smelling, hearing, and feeling. If we could mirror that and imagine for a minute that our inward face has those same faculties that face the unseen world of the spirit. Now that is what spiritual death meant. When Adam died, he lost his inside face. All those senses went dead. That life died. His ability to see the unseen realm died. So in his original creation, he had two faces. He could look both ways. Kind of like a fish with two eyes on the side of his head that don't see forward, they see this way. Adam could see in two directions, but they were integrated into a single awareness of life. And he lived, he walked with God. He lived in complete conscious union with the mind of God, and he was aware of the infinite being of God and the whole spiritual realm and all the angels and all whatever was there in the spirit world that's invisible, out of which all the things that are visible are made. It says in Hebrews chapter 6, or Hebrews chapter 11, for we know by faith we understand that things which are made are created by the word of God out of those things which are invisible. So everything that's visible somehow came out of all those invisible things. And Adam could see them both. But suddenly, it was like half of his brain went dead. He had a stroke. And he could only see outwardly. So now, you can imagine what happened. All his attention and his resources and his learning started leaning out, right? He started leaning into and depending on his outward faculties. And the controlling center of his outward faculties was his rational mind. So he literally fell into his rational mind. He fell into his ego. He just, instead of being this stereo, dual band receiver, he suddenly lost one band and just started leaning this way. And he developed, over the last, how many years we've been since Adam, we have fine-tuned our rational faculties, and we think we're somewhat advanced now. Because we know a lot more than they did in the Dark Ages, I suppose. But if you can imagine for a minute this other life coming back to life. And now we have all these faculties. We can smell and taste and see that the Lord is good. It talks about prayer being a sweet smelling aroma. Seeing. It says we walk not by faith, but we don't walk by sight, but we walk by faith. Paul's comparing outward sight with inward sight. So faith is simply an inward sight that sees the invisible world and just walks without stumbling. Smelling and tasting and feeling, all those faculties are now being resurrected in us, because that's the life of Christ coming back and wanting to come up and be integrated into the outward. It's not that we simply have to deny that what we're smelling and tasting and feeling in the outward world isn't real. It is real. But it's not nearly as real as this side. But it's real. So, it's not saying, okay, this isn't real, just pretend it's not real. That's what Christian Science does. You're not really sick. Well, no, maybe you are sick. Maybe you are dying physically. So what we need to do is we need to start accessing the resources that are here. But we have to, we do that with the faculties which God is birthing and raising up in us. So we need to learn, and that's what the Holy Spirit is teaching us, to learn to taste and smell and feel and sense in the spiritual. And this isn't some sort of, weird, mysterious thing. It's really simple. It's just, we know how to do it in this realm, and this realm teaches us what it's like here. But the problem is that we've leaned so far this way into the natural realm, and we so depend on our sense of sight that when we see a certain thing happen in the physical realm, we say, you know what? That's pretty much the way it's going to be. My bank account's empty, and there's no chance of it ever getting any money in it again. And so we actually limit the resources that could flow through from this side. Because we have now come to a conclusion, a judgment in our mind that says, you know what? I'm bankrupt. And so I throw up my hands and I quit. Instead of saying, you know what? My bank account's empty on this side, but I wonder if I have any currency stored up on this side that I could transfer over. Because it talks about laying up treasure in heaven. Well, why do we have to die to access it? If it's there, we should be able to get at it. Make a withdrawal right now.
Heaven on earth.
Exactly. So what God is trying to do here is to create he says he's broken down the wall of partition, this veil that separated the outward man from the inward man. He's saying the outward man is going down, but the inward man is being raised up. Now, some people said, well, that means your physical body's dying and your spiritual person is going up. Well, yes and no. The outward man is the rational man. It's the man who's got all his senses tied to the physical world. And there's nothing wrong with that guy. You don't need to kill him. But you do need to limit his judgment calls. You need to hold in reserve his limited perspective. Because he doesn't know everything. What he knows in the physical realm, but it's limited to the veil. This physical man can't go through the veil. He can't see anything on that side. As far as he knows, it's not there. So if I live in my rational mind, I'm bound by the parameters of the physical world. I'm locked in. But once I start waking up into the spiritual man, the inward man starts coming up and I allow him space to develop. In other words, I don't rule him out all the time. I don't let my rational mind say, well, that's really dumb. Where'd that come from? No, I say, I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me. But let's hold off. But maybe this is God. So we allow this person a chance to get on his feet. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Let him get involved in the scenario. Because this new man is really who I am. He's the essence of who I am. This is just a shadow of who I am. Now, a shadow, like I said, is real, but it's not nearly as real as that which casts it. Mm-hmm. So I've got to start moving my address from physical to spiritual. Just putting my assets over into the other bank account and start making some withdrawals for deficits on this side. So this man starts to get integrated and he starts living in wholeness. That's what I think Jesus said. I came to give you life and life abundant. Because you have a whole another area of assets and resources to draw from that are there, and they got your name on them. They're your inheritance. They're just sitting there idle. Nobody's using them. They're waiting for you. So why are we living in poverty when we could actually make a withdrawal? But the way to get it is the question you asked earlier. How do we get so that we start paying attention to this other half of ourselves, or 3/4 or 90% or whatever this thing is? The essence of our being is we have to give the person a chance by limiting the calls that this outward man snaps judgments so quickly. I mean, this guy on the outside, he's so quick. Oh, yeah, I know this is the way it is. And once he makes a judgment, it slams the door shut. The other guy, he sighs and goes back, lays down, says, well, hope we get another chance. But he's just living in anticipation of getting out and manifesting into the world. And that's exactly what Paul's saying in Romans chapter 8. The creation groans and travails, waiting eagerly for the manifestation of the sons of God. I mean, this spiritual guy is trying to get out. Mm-hmm. He's locked in the closet, and you're slamming the door on his fingers all the time. And he's saying, oh, if only I could get out.
You know what, I think a lot of it
is tied in with false belief systems that we have either been given as we were growing up or we created, and we just, blindly continue to follow these
We do.
beliefs. And so if we can recognize those and then, dispute them so that they become weaker and end up dying,
Yes.
then we can actually walk in the truth and then, do you know what I mean? Like
Absolutely. This is the process. You're describing it beautifully. This is the process of waking up into the Spirit. It's not a mystery. It's not like this really ethereal, sort of vague. It's just practical, everyday, moment by moment awareness that I have a side of me that's never had a chance to develop. It's retarded, but it's there. It's perfectly intelligent, but it's like a child kept in a closet all his life. It doesn't even know how to speak. But it's the potential of this child locked in the closet is unlimited. Jesus said, nothing is impossible to those who believe. Now, do we believe this, or do we relegate to the millennial kingdom or sometime?
Well, I've seen little kids that I know that they're more alive to that side. It hasn't been.
Yes, shut down.
It hasn't been shut down, and they
It's
can
true.
see things like they can.
Yes.
It's like an open heaven. I don't know what you call it, but it's like a portal that they can
Yeah.
get. They're just that's part of them.
You see, and this is why I think God gave us children. This is why He created children. So children could remind us of what we forgot, but we think that we're supposed to teach children to be like us, to forget what they knew. I mean, basically, we lose what we were born with. It's true. When we were children, we were probably way more open to the development of this other child that I'm talking about, this other faculty of this other face. But we have learned to suppress it. And that's what Romans verse 118 says. The wrath of God is revealed from heaven against those who hold the truth. They have the truth. It's not like they don't have it. They have access to it. They're holding it. But they suppress it. And we learn quickly to suppress this other thing. And so it never exercises its muscles. It never learns to walk and talk and do and believe and, manifest.
Because this other thing, other person, what you're describing, wants to do wild and crazy things.
He wants to do things that our mind can't even, eye hath not seen, ear hath not heard, neither hath entered into the imagination of man.
Absolutely.
But we do it illegally with drugs and
Yeah.
alcohol and, try to release our prison, get out of our prison with those.
Yes.
And it's right there, like we had it when we were born. We just kind of like shut it down.
It's true. And I think those things are accessible. I mean, Jesus walked in them. Jesus lived the life that a human soul was created to live. He didn't live a super life that nobody could ever do. He lived the life that we're created to live. He just accessed what was there. It wasn't a miracle that he walked on the water. It just, to us, appeared like it was. To him, it was like, well, it's more convenient to stay on top right now. He could have walked on the bottom just as well.
And he said, greater things than these will you do.
He did. He did say this. He said, the works that I do, well, we'd be happy with those, wouldn't we? But he went overboard. He said, and greater. Well, people say, well, that means we're going to do a lot more spiritual stuff. Well, okay, fine. We can leave the greater things to the spiritual things, but what about the things that I do, you will do? We haven't got there yet. The works that I do, you will do. Well, let's just settle for those. I mean, that'll keep us busy for a while. Getting up to speed on those things. Because I don't think he was stretching it. I don't think he was talking in hyperbole and saying, I want to show you what I can do, But, don't try this at home alone.